Alien girl copies human's way of sitting, but human finds the pose reserved for ancient queens. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's return to our main character. The research chamber hummed with a low, crystalline vibration as Ethan Cole stepped through the sliding archway, brushing frost-like dust off his jacket. The whole place glowed with that soft blue luminescence only ailen artifacts produced, like moonlight preserved inside glass. He paused just long enough for his eyes to adjust, then he saw her. Saren sat atop the ancient observation pedestal, legs folded, hands braced casually behind her, an uncanny imitation of how he sometimes sat during long decoding sessions. Only, something about it wasn't casual here. The pedestal wasn't meant for rest. Its carved lines shimmered faintly under her weight, reacting to her posture in a way Ethan had never seen. For a heartbeat he simply stood there, feeling a strange tug of tension in the air, as though the room itself recognized something he did not. Saren tilted her head when she noticed him, silver blue hair slipping across one shoulder like silk caught in a breeze. "Is this how humans sit when they're relaxed?" she asked, bright-eyed, eager, unaware of the way the pedestal's glow deepened around her. Ethan tried to answer, but his gaze kept drifting to the inscriptions at her sides, symbols he had spent weeks studying, symbols that only reacted to specific ceremonial gestures. This shouldn't have been one of them, yet the light pulsed gently, almost reverently. "I just thought it looked comfortable," she added, shifting her hands the way he always did, fingers tapping lightly against the stone. Her movement made the runes flicker again. Ethan's breath caught. Comfortable was not the word the old records used. He stepped closer without meaning to, boots whispering against the smooth floor, his mind racing through everything he knew about ailen posture codes. The archives mentioned a seated form reserved for high lineage, something performed only during ancient coronation rites, a posture meant to activate heritage sensors built into royal architecture. But that position had been lost for centuries, and somehow she had landed in it by accident. Saren noticed his wide eyes and lifted her chin, confusion softening her voice. "Did I get it wrong? Humans make it look effortless." Ethan shook his head quickly, raising his palms to reassure her. No, it's not wrong. It's just surprising." The glow followed the line of her spine like a slow exhale of light. Surprising didn't begin to cover it. Her attempt to copy him wasn't just an imitation. The room was responding to her, recognizing her. Saren blinked at him, her expression open, innocent. "Should I move?" "Maybe not yet," Ethan murmured, feeling the weight of discovery settle around them like a held breath. He wasn't sure if he was witnessing a mistake or the first hint of a truth her people had forgotten. The seam in the archival door pulsed like a quiet heartbeat, a thin line of light marking the boundary between the known and the forgotten. Ethan reached out, brushing the metallic edge with the back of his fingers, feeling warmth radiating through the alloy. It should not have been warm. These doors were designed to remain inert until a precise sequence was met. Yet here it was, waking up for her. Saren stood a few feet behind him, hands clasped together as if she were trying to steady her own breathing. "Does this mean I have to go inside?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan turned toward her, reading the uncertainty in her posture. "Only if you want to. Nothing in that room is going to hurt you." The ailen were protective of their records, not dangerous. Saren let her gaze drift to the glowing seam again. "It feels like it remembers me, even if I do not remember it." Ethan nodded. Sometimes places hold on to stories longer than people do. She stepped beside him, a slow and careful movement, and the seam widened just enough to let a breath of cool air whisper out. It carried a faint scent of old parchment and mineral dust, as if the chamber beyond had been sealed for centuries. Ethan angled the small beam on his wrist console toward the opening. "Let me check it first," he said, leaning in just enough to scan. The space within was dim, lined with tall crystalline panels that responded faintly to his light. But they did not activate. They stayed dormant, waiting for her. Saren touched the edge of the door with cautious fingers. The panels inside brightened instantly, a soft ripple moving down their surfaces like the glow of distant stars. Ethan exhaled in disbelief. They are sinking to your presence. Saren gave a faint, almost disbelieving laugh. I spent my entire life thinking I was ordinary. Nothing about this is ordinary, Ethan replied gently. She stepped inside, the glow following her like a quiet companion. Ethan stayed close, letting his boots land softly so as not to disturb the hush of the chamber. Crystal panels flared one by one as she passed, forming a path of bluish-white that stretched deeper into the archival vault. Ethan, she said, slowing near the center of the room. Look at this. He followed her gaze to a panel that displayed a faint outline of a figure. When Saren moved her hand closer, the outline sharpened, forming the elegant silhouette of an ailen woman posed in the same posture Saren had accidentally recreated. Beneath the image, a line of ancient script glowed. Ethan leaned in to translate it. This title, he murmured, it refers to a royal keeper, someone who safeguarded knowledge during the earliest migrations. Saren's expression softened with something like awe. A keeper. That sounds like someone who watched over history, not someone who ruled. Not all royalty wore crowns, Ethan said quietly. Some carried memory instead of authority. Saren stared at the figure for a long moment, and then she did something subtle but unmistakable. She mirrored the panel's posture, only a fraction, only enough to test if her body remembered. The room brightened in a single gentle wave, light rippling outward as if acknowledging her. Ethan felt his breath catch. The chamber was responding with recognition, not error. Saren lowered her hand, startled by the intensity of the reaction. I did not mean to do anything, she whispered. Ethan shook his head. You did not force anything. This place simply knows you. The words settled into the quiet space between them. And somewhere deeper in the vault, another panel chimed softly, awakening as if calling her forward. The soft chime from the deeper panel floated through the vault like a whispered invitation, gentle enough to feel welcoming rather than alarming. Saren turned toward the sound, her expression caught somewhere between wonder and hesitation. Ethan walked beside her, keeping a respectful distance, letting her set the pace. Every step she took brought another section of the crystalline walls to life, each panel glowing as though greeting an old friend. It reminded Ethan of lights turning on in a house that had been dark for too long. It is guiding us, Saren murmured. But why? Ethan scanned the illuminated panels. Maybe it is not guiding us, he said thoughtfully. Maybe it is greeting you. Her hands tightened briefly at her sides. I do not know how to be someone worth greeting. Ethan looked at her, not at the glowing vault, and answered gently. Worth is not something written in ancestry. It is something written in how you choose to walk through the world. A faint smile touched her lips, but it vanished as the chimes sounded again, this time accompanied by a shimmer across a large panel near the back of the vault. The crystalline surface projected an expanded image, forming the outline of a towering structure, something like an ancient observatory crowned with arches of light. Saren approached it slowly. I have seen this place, she whispered. In stories. My mother mentioned it once, but only as a myth. Ethan checked the console. This is the Celestial Archive, if the translation is correct. A repository for the earliest ailen records. The projection shifted, revealing multiple figures standing in a ceremonial circle around the observatory. Each figure held a staff of light, and each wore the same poised, grounded posture Saren had instinctively performed. These are keepers, Ethan said quietly. Higher than scholars. They were entrusted to safeguard the identity of your people. Saren drew in a slow breath. But why would this place respond to me? There must be thousands of ailen with stronger lineage than mine. Lineage is not always measured by titles, Ethan replied. Sometimes it is passed through instinct, gesture, or memory the body keeps even when the mind forgets. Saren touched the panel, and the projection zoomed in to reveal a single name inscribed beside the ceremonial circle. The script pulsed faintly beneath her fingers. Ethan leaned in to translate. It says this keeper ensured the survival of your archives during a migration event, he said. Their role was vital. The name glowed brighter, and Saren's breath caught. Ethan, she whispered. That is my mother's family name. Ethan felt the air shift again, as if the room itself acknowledged her realization. She stepped back, her voice trembling softly. My mother never spoke of this. She never hinted that our family was connected to anything important. Ethan lowered his voice. Sometimes people hide the truth to protect those they love. Saren shook her head, her eyes reflecting the crystalline light. Protect me from what? This history is beautiful, not dangerous. Ethan hesitated, choosing each word with care. Maybe she feared what others might expect from someone with this heritage. Legacy can be a weight as much as an honor. Saren stared at the glowing panel, letting his words sink in. For the first time, she touched her own chest lightly, as if testing the steadiness of her heartbeat. I do not know if I am ready for any of this. Ethan stepped closer, stopping just short of offering his hand. You do not have to be ready. You only have to keep walking. And you are not walking alone. Saren met his eyes, something calmer settling behind her uncertainty. The vault responded again, a warm glow sweeping the room in a gentle arc, as if approving the quiet courage forming inside her. The next panel chimed softly, waiting to be discovered. The next panel chimed with a gentler tone, almost like a soft reminder rather than a command. Saren approached it slowly, her steps echoing faintly across the crystalline floor. The glow from the walls wrapped around her like a quiet halo, reflecting in her silver-blue eyes as she lifted her hand toward the surface. The panel responded instantly, blooming with layers of script and imagery that unfolded like petals of light. Ethan angled his wrist console to record, but mostly he watched her, noticing how her entire posture shifted. Not fearful, not overwhelmed, just present, as if something deep inside her finally aligned. The new projection displayed an intricate diagram of gestures, movements, and ceremonial positions. Ethan recognized one immediately. That is the posture you performed earlier, he said quietly. Saren studied the outline, her brow furrowing. I did not even think about it. I just copied how you Saturday. Ethan shook his head, his voice steady. You tried to copy me, but your body chose something else. The projection zoomed in on the ceremonial pose, highlighting the structure of the spine, the placement of hands, the angle of the hips. Everything matched Saren's instinctive movement perfectly. She exhaled slowly. So I did something only trained keepers were meant to do, without any training at all. Ethan nodded. And that means something significant. She turned to him, searching his face for an explanation she was not sure she wanted. Ethan softened his voice so it felt like reassurance rather than revelation. It means you are connected to this place in a way that is not accidental. Saren pressed her palm against the panel again, and it shifted to display another keeper, this time shown in a softer moment, speaking to a group of children. The script beneath the image translated into a simple phrase. Ethan read it aloud. A keeper teaches not through authority, but through example. Saren blinked, moved by the gentle sentiment. My mother used to say something similar. Then maybe she remembered more than she let on. Ethan replied. Saren let that thought settle, her gaze distant. She always encouraged curiosity. She said that understanding ourselves required patience and courage. Ethan watched the glow reflect across her features, giving them a quiet strength. Then she prepared you well. The next image appeared without her touching anything. A keeper, younger than the others, was practicing the ceremonial posture in an empty hall. The figure wobbled slightly, almost losing balance, then laughed and tried again. Saren stared at the image, her voice soft. They were learning too. Everyone starts somewhere, Ethan said. Even keepers. She took a small step forward, shoulders loosening, as though the vault's quiet stories were slowly lifting a weight she had carried without knowing it. I thought these gestures belonged only to royalty. But this looks like training. Like discovery. Maybe being a keeper was not about being perfect, Ethan said gently. Maybe it was about being willing to learn. Saren's expression softened, and for the first time since the pedestal had responded to her, she allowed herself a small, steady breath. I can learn, she whispered. I want to understand why I can do these things. Ethan nodded, a calm certainty settling between them like a shared promise. Then we will learn together. The vault pulsed with a warm ripple of light, as if acknowledging the decision. But just as the glow faded, a faint vibration tremored through the chamber floor. Ethan straightened, alert. Saren looked at him, her voice barely a whisper. Did the vault do that? Ethan listened, eyes narrowing slightly. No, he said. That came from outside. The vault remained glowing and patient, but something beyond its walls had shifted, and the air carried a new tension, subtle but undeniable. The tremor faded as quietly as it had arrived, leaving the vault in a gentle stillness, but the shift in the air lingered like a held breath. Saren stepped closer to Ethan, her voice low. What would cause something like that? The station should be stable. Ethan checked his wrist console, watching as the readings flickered with faint irregularities. It was subtle, he said, but real. Something triggered a power reroute in this sector. He lifted his gaze toward the vault entrance. It could be related to the activation of the panels. They might have drawn energy from nearby systems. Saren frowned, glancing at the glowing walls. Did we overload something? Ethan shook his head. No, but the system is adjusting. The vault has been dormant for a very long time. It might not have expected to wake up. Before Saren could respond, another panel lit softly behind them, projecting a rotating sphere marked with delicate bands of script. Ethan recognized it immediately. This is a registry, he said. A catalog of keeper lines. Saren's breath caught. You mean family lines? Heritage lines, Ethan corrected gently. Not every keeper line was a bloodline. Some were chosen. Some merged. Some continued through mentorship. The sphere expanded, revealing branches of glowing names, each one connected to others through intricate filaments. Saren reached toward it, and several branches brightened, reacting to her presence. She pulled her hand back in surprise. Ethan, what does that mean? Ethan studied the lights. It means you are recognized somewhere within this structure. Maybe directly. Maybe through ancestry. Maybe through something your mother never spoke of. Saren stared at the glowing network, her voice quiet. I always wished I knew more about her past. She carried this calmness, this strength, but she never talked about where it came from. Strength often has roots, Ethan said. Some grow over generations. One branch brightened more intensely, signaling a connection pattern the system seemed eager to display. A name pulsed into focus, accompanied by a short script. Ethan translated aloud. This keeper was known for preserving knowledge. During the Great Transport Storms, their records guided migrations for decades. Saren felt the glow reflect in her eyes. My mother told a story like that. She said her grandmother survived a journey across a damaged star lane. Ethan turned to her, realization forming slowly. Then your family may have carried this responsibility for much longer than you knew. Saren pressed her hands together, grounding herself. But if that is true, why did the records disappear? Why would our line stop being recognized? Ethan breathed out softly. History is not always lost. Sometimes it is quiet. The vault responded again, this time projecting a calm blue wave that passed across the surface of every panel, like a reassuring exhale. Saren closed her eyes for a moment, letting that quiet pulse steady her. If this place knows me, she said, then maybe I can learn to know it too. You already are, Ethan replied. She opened her eyes, and something had shifted in her expression. Not certainty, not yet, but resolve. She stepped toward the registry sphere again, letting her fingers hover close without touching. The sphere rotated slowly, then came to a stop, aligning to a single, unlit branch. Saren tilted her head. That one is blank. Ethan leaned in. Yes, he said softly. It is waiting for a name. Before either of them could speak further, a soft tone chimed from the vault entrance. Not from the panels, but from the station itself. A system notification. Ethan checked his console. His brows lifted. Saren, he said gently. Someone is coming down this corridor. The vault glowed around her, quiet and watchful, as if it understood the moment was about to change. Footsteps approached from the corridor outside, soft but steady, each one growing clearer as they echoed through the vaulted entrance. Saren instinctively stepped closer to Ethan, not out of fear but out of uncertainty, as though she suddenly did not know how much of this discovery she was meant to share with the world beyond the crystalline walls. Ethan raised his wrist console, watching the incoming signal resolve into an identification tag. It is Archivist Ledhar, he said quietly. He must have detected the energy spike. Saren drew a slow breath, glancing around the glowing chamber. Will he understand what happened here? Ethan hesitated. He will understand that something awakened. Whether he will understand why, that is another question. The vault entrance slid open with a soft hydraulic whisper. An archivist let her step inside. His long ceremonial robes brushed the floor with a faint rustle, and the ambient light cast pale reflections across his silvered hair. His eyes widened as he took in the illuminated panels, the active registry sphere, and Saren standing at its center as though she had always belonged there. "This vault has been dormant since before my appointment," he said, his voice layered with awe. "What did you do?" Saren opened her mouth to answer, but Ethan stepped gently beside her, not shielding her, but supporting her presence with his own calm. "She touched nothing intentionally," Ethan said. The vault responded to her. Ledhar studied Saren with a searching expression. "Responded to you? How?" Saren clasped her hands lightly, her voice steady even as uncertainty flickered behind it. "I only tried to sit like Ethan." The pedestal recognized it. Then the door opened. The vault activated. "I do not know why." Ledhar moved toward the pedestal, examining the dormant runes with reverence. "This seat belonged to the line of keepers," he murmured. "Only those bearing the legacy could perform the activation posture." He turned to Saren slowly, almost cautiously. "Child, who taught you this?" Saren shook her head. "No one. I did not know it meant anything." Ethan added gently. "She reproduced the posture perfectly, without prompting." Lethar's gaze sharpened with a blend of shock and something older, something like recognition. He approached the registry sphere, and as he drew near, several branches dimmed, as if acknowledging that he was not the one being sought. But the blank branch near Saren remained illuminated, waiting. Ledhar looked between Saren and the sphere, his voice nearly a whisper. "This should not be possible unless—" He stopped himself, unsure whether to speak the next words aloud. Saren met his gaze directly. "Unless what?" Ledhar swallowed, then continued with deliberate clarity. "Unless you are of the Keeper's descent, or chosen by the vault itself." Saren's breath trembled, but she held her posture. "My family lived far from anything like this. My mother never claimed any connection to the Keepers." Lethar's eyes softened. Many lines went into hiding after the dissolution of the old orders. Some Keepers protected their families by removing themselves from the records. Ethan stepped forward. "She has activated systems that should have required years of training." Ledhar nodded slowly. "Which means the vault recognizes her as belonging to a legacy that predates any formal training." Saren looked at the glowing sphere again, and this time, instead of hesitation, there was a quiet strength in her voice. "If this place remembers me, then I will listen." The vault responded with a warm wave of light that rolled across every panel, gentle and welcoming, as though it approved of her resolve. Ledhar stepped back in reverence. "The vault is preparing something. It is not finished with you." Before any of them could respond, the crystalline floor beneath the registry sphere brightened, forming a circular pattern that had not appeared before, as if revealing the next part of a story only Saren could unlock. The circular pattern beneath the registry sphere glowed brighter, each ring illuminating in a slow outward pulse, as though the vault were breathing in anticipation. Saren stood at its edge, hesitation flickering across her face before fading into something calmer, something steadier. Archivist Ledhar watched with reverent stillness, hands folded before him, while Ethan remained at Saren's side, offering quiet support in the way he had since the moment the pedestal first responded to her. The pattern resolved into a soft column of light rising from the floor, casting a gentle shimmer across the chamber. Symbols drifted upward within it, weightless and delicate, like fragments of a forgotten melody visualized in air. Ethan lifted his wrist console to scan, but the device flickered and powered down, unable to interpret what the vault was generating. "It is beyond our systems," he murmured. "This is something the vault wants to show you directly." Saren stepped forward, and the column brightened in response, its symbols aligning into a coherent shape. A simple, elegant posture mirrored exactly from the pedestal's recordings. But there was more. As the image settled, another figure appeared beside it, performing a complementary gesture, one that balanced and affirmed the first. Ledhar inhaled softly. "A recognition rite," he whispered. This was performed between a keeper and their witness. The witness stood to affirm the keeper's identity before the archives. Saren turned to Ethan, eyes wide. "A witness? Does it require a chosen keeper?" Ledhar nodded. A witness was someone the vault trusted to see the keeper clearly, someone who could anchor truth. Saren's gaze drifted back to the light. "Then what is it asking me for?" Ethan studied the paired gestures, understanding dawning in pieces. "It is asking you to stand in the keeper's place, he said gently. And it is showing the position for whoever stands with you. Saren looked up at him, a small, almost fragile question behind her steady expression. Why me? Ethan answered with a soft sincerity that filled the quiet space. Because you activated the vault. Because it recognized your posture. Because your heritage, remembered or forgotten, is still yours. And because you are willing to understand it. She held his gaze, something unspoken settling between them like a shared breath. Then she glanced at Ledhar, who bowed his head deeply. Child, he said with quiet reverence, I can observe. I can record. But I cannot stand in that circle for you. The vault chose you, not me. Saren stepped toward the column until the light reflected along her skin like ripples of water. She inhaled, grounding herself, and then moved into the posture the vault projected, letting her body settle into its shape, guided by instinct rather than memory. The floor responded instantly, the circular pattern blooming outward in rings of warm blue. Ethan stepped into the complementary position opposite her, not because the vault required it, but because she looked at him with trust that anchored the moment. As he mirrored the gesture, the light swept upward, forming a bridge between them. The vault brightened to its fullest, panels shimmering with ancient script that flowed across the crystalline walls like a rising tide. Lethar's voice trembled with awe. It is acknowledging a keeper for the first time in generations. The bridge of light softened, shimmering around Saren like a quiet coronation not meant for crowns but for truth. As the glow slowly faded, the registry sphere returned to view. The blank branch that had lingered in silence now pulsed gently, and a new name inscribed itself in luminous script. Saren did not need Ethan to translate. She recognized it instantly. Her own name. The vault dimmed to a peaceful stillness, as though exhaling after a long-held breath. Saren stood there quietly, the light reflecting in her eyes, and Ethan watched as understanding settled over her like dawn rising. She spoke softly, not to the vault, not to Ledhar, but to the truth finally reflected back at her. I am not here by accident. And in the hush of the ancient chamber, the vault answered with silence that carried meaning.